Hi, today's video is a conversation I had with Simon Brown of Awake Here and Now. He's on Substack and here on YouTube. And I'm Sarah Taylor. I'm an awakening trail guide and an intuitive energy healer. And Simon and I talked about the importance of the heart with your practice and with really embodying a full awakening, dropping from the mind into the heart. So we hope this conversation will be of benefit to you. Let us know how you like it in the comments and enjoy.
It's really nice to finally meet Sarah. Yeah. So I've kind of caught glimpses of what you do and what you share in the world. Well, they started as glimpses and it's kind of grown into just kind of a little bit of admiration and intrigue as well. Like what's been really noticeable to me is that you're not doing what everybody else is doing. You are very much yourself and sharing a non-fixed self, if you know what I mean. You've got this beautiful Sarah-ness to you, and it's not this, you can't pin it down. And I really, really enjoy that. So I thought, let's reach out and have a conversation.
Well, I appreciate that. Thank you. And I mean, I reached out to you and I said, hey, I really like your work. Like you're really offering something of value on YouTube. And so then we just started chatting a bit and sort of finding some similarities between us. And so it's been really nice to have this connection with you. So yeah, very, very heart-centric. Your
and
teachings.
that's exactly what I get from you as well. Exactly what I get from you.
Important.
And actually, it is so important. And I think now more than ever, well, maybe that's not entirely true, but it feels like now more than ever when the rhetoric in the world is so divisive and full of cruelty, then actually it's clear that liberation lies here. It lies in this open heart, this capacity to be with whatever's arising in the world with love and acceptance. We've seen the trouble that fighting gets us. We see it. So it's a radical teaching to explore the heart and to explore what it is to love.
Yeah, and all the ways that we can love. I mean, embracing the paradox that we can love and accept what is, and also say, and this is effed up over here, and that needs some attention over here, and that, so,
absolutely.
And that's the thing that sometimes is missed in spiritual teachings, especially the non-dual circles. It's like, non-duality can become an escape from this relative level world in which we're all functioning and paying our taxes, hopefully, and, driving cars and having relationships and, so to hold both. And I think that happens at the heart.
Definitely. It's so interesting you say that, because I kind of got into sharing things online. Well, I don't really know how I got into it, but there was a yearning desire to share a message of compassion in the world following my decades of practice. Like it was clear that I was coming across people that were struggling, because it's not clear, is it? The spiritual path is a challenging one. In fact, you could say the most challenging, really, because it forces us to, on a deepest level, to look at every aspect of ourselves, and there was so much information and teachings and pointings that was so, I don't know how to describe them, like functional, very functional, but didn't seem to be very alive. So I was kind of inspired to be like, well, actually, how do we live a life? How do we live a life as a human being with an awake heart, as opposed to be this strange, slightly dissociated, non-dual automaton that kind of negates the vast swathe of experience, which seems to be what I was hearing again and again and again. So that's kind of, I thought, well, maybe there's a space for this, and it seems that there is. And what's really interesting,
I think there is.
It seems, and I'm sure you're feeling exactly the same in what you did. It's not the escape hatch that's promised by the immediate escape of non-dual realization. It's, I would say, a deeper truth of what it is to live a life that unfolds over time for the rest of our
Yeah.
lives, you know, and to find
Yes.
freedom in each moment. And for me, that's where the juice is. That's what life is all about, isn't it?
Yeah. That's where the juice is. Yeah, exactly. I agree. Because otherwise, what are we doing?
Yeah,
You know, we're
yeah,
still here
yeah,
as much as we try to, escape it or negate it,
yeah,
and even realizing that we're not the self that we thought we were, the
yeah.
structures of self, and seeing through that. Well, again, there's still a life that is being lived, and
Mm,
and so, that reconciliation, like we were saying, happens at the heart of the human and your original nature,
yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
And how have you found your response in the public domain? Because I know well, I see that you kind of name yourself as a spiritual trail guide, which I absolutely love. And I wanted to talk a little bit about that later. But so yeah, you talk about being a spiritual trail guide. So it sounds like you've been maybe guiding some people for a number of years, maybe.
Yeah. I started teaching meditation to actors and comedians here in Los Angeles
Okay.
in like 2006. And then as awakening began unfolding for me, people started coming to me. And so maybe it's been about, I don't know, 15 years that I've been working with people or whatever. But
Amazing.
yeah, so that's like, full time what I do.
Mm,
Um, and I do see that there is this confusion that people have about the spiritual path, that it is going to be an escape, which
yeah,
I'm sure you've seen because you work with
yeah,
people.
yeah.
Yeah. And we found in our own practice and our own unfoldment that that's not true. The cosmic joke is you're landed squarely, like right here. So I just try to kind of get people to soften with their humanity more than anything, because um I found, especially because I work with highly sensitive, neurodivergent people, that once there's this softening to our humanity, and we're not trying to push away at it or amend it or see through it all the time, and just bring it in, welcome it in, welcome it in, then what's revealed is, oh, the one doing the welcoming is what I am.
Mm, mm, mm. Oh,
So
beautifully, beautifully put. Yeah,
yeah, and there are many ways in. There are many ways
yeah.
and many doorways, many practices. you
Mm,
know. I did a lot of neti, not this, not this.
yeah, yeah.
I'm not my emotions. I'm not this label. I'm not this
Mm,
role. I'm not this storyline, this narrative. I'm not this sense of self that I kind of think is here. And then also that inclusion. And that's a movement of the heart. That's the unity, the non-duality, really.
yeah, I
Yeah,
think it's crucial, isn't it? Because of the nature of conditioning. You know, we are conditioned beings. I mean, this is a conditioned realm. You know,
that's
this
right.
is our manifestation. This is what we get.
Yes.
And yet
Yeah.
we can notice that on the deepest level, we are not bound to those conditions. You know, there is the unconditioned, the unborn, the
Yeah.
uncompounded, which is ideally what we wake up to. That there is an
Yeah.
incredible freedom there. But yeah, when we're working with conditions, it's really important to do practices like you say, neti, so like not this, not this. For me, I would sit in meditation and I would recite the three lakshanas. I don't know if you know the three lakshanas. So they
What
are
are the three
the three
lectures?
the three marks of conditioned
Oh,
existence.
the three marks of existence. Oh,
Yeah,
yeah.
exactly. Yeah.
Fan
So the
of the three marks of
anicca, yeah,
existence. Yeah.
anicca, anatta, dukkha. So
Anatta and
basically,
dukkha.
yeah, anicca is impermanent, not
Yes.
self, and causes suffering.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah. Yeah.
yeah, and the invitation is with the practice to every condition that arises, everything, every single arising is to remind ourselves in our experience that this is not self. These conditions are not self. They are impermanent and they will not satisfy permanently. And
That's
that can
right.
sound to some people like, oh man, that sounds really bleak. but actually there's freedom in the
Yeah.
unbinding. But it's the fact
Yeah.
that we were bound to all these things that come and go, and we were grabbing onto them so tightly that caused us to suffer so deeply, and we mistook them for being ourselves.
Yeah.
But it
And we
takes a lot of
tried to grab
practice,
onto
though.
it.
Yeah, we
Or
do.
we tried to grab onto it, or we tried to push away. And yes,
Yeah.
I have done that practice with that. I've always called it the 3 marks of existence. But yes, if we just like hold things under those 3, those 3 different lenses and that view as a whole, I mean, that's a guiding light,
Totally.
we just keep
Yeah.
doing that,
It's like the truth, isn't it? So, well, it's a truth that actually you can work with, and yet it's not the unconditioned truth. It's a truth of conditions. So we see, oh yeah, these things, the body, the thoughts, the character, it comes and goes. So the invitations, let go, let go, let go. And what that practice doesn't tell you is that when we unhook, when we're suitably able to let that go, something else entirely becomes apparent. And that's
Yes,
what isn't really explored. Well, I mean, because it's unspeakable,
of
really.
course.
But it's really nice to redress the balance, to say, oh no, actually there is access to the deepest, most interconnected love, presence, unity, joy, full bandwidth life, which isn't bound to the passing of conditions, and it's such a it is the most beautiful thing to realize ultimately.
The unborn and the deathless, untouched by these, passing conditions. But I love what you're saying, because we also have to really see conditions clearly, in this conditioned realm clearly, to then our invitation is to play and embrace, because what are we going to do? Push away at it, like we've been saying,
we try, don't we? And I guess
we sure
this is
do.
why we do. Yeah. And this is why I really like what you share, because you're not saying it to the world, you can do this simple thing and hack away at all of your delusion and it goes away instantly, and suddenly you get access to bliss forever. What you say, and what is probably similar to what I share, is that we are conditioned over a lifetime. So this conditioning runs deep. So actually, the deeper and more clearly we see, the deeper and more clearly we see our deepest conditions. And this happens over time. We get to see all of the ways in which we grasped and clinged and suffered from birth. And this takes time. It takes time and support and patience, and there's so many teachers online that just say, and I've heard it a lot now, more so than ever, they're just saying, you don't need to do anything. You don't need to do anything. Just be yourself completely. It's like, okay, I mean, that's fine if you've unbound from all of your conditions, but if you're still taking drugs, drinking, hurting people, like causing sexual harm to people, as an example, maybe don't do that. maybe that's not okay. Like maybe you're still lost.
You're
But
still
there's a kind of,
grasping.
but it's the kind of like quick fix McDonald's awakening of, oh no, you don't need to do anything. You don't need to work with this tricky stuff. Just do nothing. It's like, okay, well, I get the sentiment. Of course, it's all right here, and there's nothing we can do to change the truth of this moment. Yet we can contemplate the way in which we're conditioned. We should. I think we should, if we're on the spiritual path.
It's very important. And whether it's just embracing our imperfections and our, our the really dark stuff that we don't want to admit or look at, or seeing through it. I mean, ultimately we want to see through it, see it for what it is. It's impermanence. It causes suffering, when we grasp or push away at it, and it's not who we are. But also that welcoming of it and saying, like, I mean, I just remember sort of seeing, greed, hatred, and aversion, and just saying, like, okay, I'm just going to embrace that it's here for like a week. And just stop trying to do inquiry or something around it, and just notice when it arises, and swim around in it. I'm not going to, have it flow outward towards anyone. That's the promise. Beautiful. Here.
Yeah.
But what does it feel like? What does it feel like in the body? You know, how
Exactly.
does it, like, where does it start arising? Do I feel it in the belly or the chest or the head? And how am I identified with it? Or how am I grasping or pushing? And, and so that just like you said, like swimming around in it and getting comfortable with it. I mean, I did a lot of Chöd practice, if you've ever
Oh
done
yeah, yeah.
Chöd.
I know a little.
Yeah,
I know
yeah.
a little of Church. Yeah.
Yeah. And then years later, Lama Sutram Alioni has a book on it, which I admittedly have not read, but I was doing it, in the Buddhist tradition, right? And
Mm.
um, yeah, it's gnarly,
Yeah, it's
to
just some of the
feed
Chud
your
practices,
demons.
Tonglen, isn't it, as well? So like breathing in hatred and breathing out love and
Yeah,
transmutation and things like that.
yeah. I've done a lot of Tonglen, which I think
Have
is
you?
really helpful. But do you like Tonglen? Have you done
I've
the
done some.
practice
I've
in it?
done some. Yeah,
Yeah,
I mean, I've dabbled in a little of everything, really.
yeah.
So yeah, it's quite a broad spectrum. I guess more now rooted in kind of Dzogchen practice, which is kind of
Yes.
because it seems to be at this time in my life really the only thing that lights it all up. That's not to say that the other practices in the past weren't really useful, but
Yeah,
now because of the work, actually there is not much to do other than to trust life to show me truth.
yeah.
Whereas
That's beautiful.
that's not always been the case for sure. I've had to really
Yeah.
really rely upon. I think the key practice, which I think most people are missing because they think that it's like a cop out or it's too cheesy, is mindfulness. So many people
Yeah.
are not developing a mindful, attentive way of being in the world. So then, you might be the same for you. I speak to a lot of people that have had like these strong shifts or awakening shifts because of very powerful inquiry practices, but they've
Hmm.
never developed a capacity to be with what arises with a mindful attention. So then, all after like an initial letting go of the self structure, then all of the conditioning goes whoop, right, see it now, and they just
Yeah.
cascade into panic because they've not got any foundational practice to sit underneath it. And
Yeah.
I think it's really concerning, to be honest. I think maybe some teachers are doing a disservice to people to say, you can have it all and you can have it within a year. It's like, okay, but what happens after that? Are you there? Are you alongside them when they're in the weeds?
Oof.
And I
Yeah,
think a lot of the time they're not,
exactly.
because they're just a YouTube presence, you know.
Right.
Because actually, that's the difference between working with a teacher or being part of a sangha or a spiritual community, is that actually when shit hits the fan, people can hold it with us. They can say, "Oh yeah, we've got you. We will go through this with you."
Yes. Yes.
Following your favorite YouTube celebrity and listening to all the videos and getting the awakening moment. I mean, I'm not saying that's bad because I've been part
Yeah.
of
Yeah.
it,
No, I
but there's
know
a limit
it's,
to which it can support.
and it's hard because there are, I mean, when I was kind of awakening and having huge insights and stuff, I mean, there wasn't anything on YouTube. I just could not find
No,
anything.
yeah, similar.
And I mean, so it was like, good luck, and
Mm,
luckily I had a Sangha and I had some, context for what was happening. But it's like we have a plethora of information and teachings and pointers uh, coming at us now, but then also people are having these big insights and have like kind of no context for it. So I end up
totally.
getting people who are like, this thing happens where I feel like I don't exist, but I do, and everything's dreamlike. Like, now what do I
Yeah,
do? And I'm
yeah,
freaked out.
yeah.
And what is this? And I'm like, well, this is
Mm,
why you've been I mean, and it's so you're exactly right. It's like you have to be able to sit in the mud with people,
completely.
afterwards, and it's that mindfulness. I mean, I see that one of the biggest uh, indicators as to how smooth a post insight, post awakening, post shift terrain's going to go is how much can the person be with what is arising.
Exactly. Yeah, very
You
much
know,
so. And this is where these compassion and metta and open-hearted practices of self-love and loving kindness also completely absent in the New
Yes.
Age kind of non-dual circles.
Yeah.
Super important, because actually the things that arise, these deep areas
Yeah.
of conditioning, they're from wounds. They're painful. You know, we've the accredited kind of crud of what we are that we've slopped on top of all the wounds.
Yeah.
Once that starts peeling off, I mean, the feelings that arise, we've never felt them
Oh my
before
God.
often. And if we don't have like a practice to cultivate love and acceptance, then actually it can drive us mad. Like it can. Yeah, I'm not
Yes.
saying necessarily literally, but it can drive people to distraction. I think what often happens, what I see a lot, is relapse. So a relapse into whatever the behavior was prior that was a coping mechanism. That's particularly challenging when it involves trauma
Yeah.
and substance abuse, you know.
Yeah.
Like,
And I did it. Like I collapsed
yeah,
into
me
post
too.
awakening. I mean, into like real, like rigid kind of
All
collapsed,
right.
contracted.
Yeah.
And it can only hold up for so long because what's been seen, something has really shifted. But it kind of takes, it kind of can take longer,
Mm.
Um, and, and, I did a lot of metta. I did a lot of the Brahma Vihara practices before any kind of shifts started happening. So there was always this cultivation of the heart, cultivating the heart, cultivating the heart, even if it feels kind of fake or phony, or it's like, I'm not feeling loving kindness for this stranger right now, or I'm not feeling loving kindness for my enemy. And
Yeah.
you just do it anyway. I mean, I remember doing it like every day for a year, and then just finding my relationship with some family members who had been abusive just totally shifting, not because they changed, but,
Yeah.
and then, doing it for myself. Somehow I just knew that doing metta practice, doing loving kindness for myself first and foremost was super important, so
Totally.
that you're right, and sometimes people with metta, they'll just, or they were taught maybe a certain way where they like forget about themselves, that you send it to yourself.
Mm.
And
Yeah.
in some practices,
They
you
kind of
start with
skip out.
yourself.
Oh, I think in
Yeah.
most practices you would start with yourself, usually, but I think what happens is, like you said, because it's very challenging, because this is where the real hatred and the suffering is. It's in our own
Yeah.
conditioning. It's very easy to kind of, there's a disconnect between us and others because we don't live
Yes.
their lives. So we can go, oh yeah, I can love that guy or that woman,
Yeah.
or whoever. But actually here, oh no, 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 I'm
Yeah.
unloved
No, no.
often. Yeah.
Totally. I mean, I was very much like an overgiver, a lover, a pleaser, a
Yeah.
chameleon. So it was very easy for me to see the good in others, to actually be kind of naive, and to, really offer that kind of loving kindness to others very easily. But to myself, it wasn't. It was, hard. And that's where, like metta and even Tonglen, like just breathing in my own resistance and
Mm,
breathing out compassion.
mm,
Tonglen can be used to breathe in others' suffering,
that's
right?
right.
Which can feel overwhelming if it's early on the path, right? For
Sure.
people, if they don't have a basis of mindfulness and being with what is, or don't have a level of concentration, doing Tonglen, like, I'm going to breathe in this. I'm just going to, it's a Tuesday, I'm going to
Breathing a
breathe in the
world suffering
suffering of
is,
humanity. Yeah,
yeah.
right. And you can become quite overwhelmed. So I just always would do it with myself. I go on retreats, and I would just, the first 3 days, I was always in resistance and
Mm.
always like riled up and restless and pushing against, well, I don't want to sit here. Why did I agree to do this?
Yeah,
And
yeah,
then I just breathe in the resistance, breathe in the self-hatred, breathe in the
yeah.
shame about what, just existence, right? And yeah, breathing out that compassion for ourselves. So important,
Very much
you
so.
know?
Yeah, beautifully put. It's so
Mhm.
nice to. It's clear that you've got quite a foundation of Dharma practice, like Buddha Dharma practice. Obviously, because
Mhm.
maybe some of the people that may watch this, some of the terms we're using, they might not understand. So we've used terms like Tonglen, which is a type of Tibetan
Yeah.
meditation practice. You use the term Brahma Viharas, so that means the divine abodes, which the Buddha talked about.
Yeah.
I like to describe them as facets, 4 facets of the awake open heart. So if the awake
Yes.
open heart is a diamond, it's 4 facets through which the light of, well, Bodhi, really, the awake light,
Yeah.
it
Yeah.
refracts through these different facets. And the Buddha would say that these divine abodes, they are enough for everything, every situation, every person, every encounter.
Yes.
One of these or all of these facets will suffice. Just meet,
Yeah.
and they naturally arise. So we don't necessarily. And again, I guess to clarify, you have love,
Yeah.
loving kindness,
Loving kindness.
unconditional loving kindness. We have karuna, which is compassion. Yeah, and then we
Compassion.
have
Yeah.
mudita, which is one of the most challenging for so many people, which is sympathetic joy for others.
Yeah.
That would be something that's, I notice in a lot of people the jealousy in people's hearts and their inability to feel joy for other people's well-being.
Yes.
You can see why that's such a powerful faculty for unbinding. If we're able to
Yes.
revel in joy in your, let's say I'm able to revel in joy in your skillful actions, what a life to live that is. And
Yeah.
then finally
And then
equanimity.
Yeah.
Which is incredible, isn't it? Because equanimity is spoken quite a lot nowadays, but it's kind of spoken about as this icy place almost,
This cool, heady place.
as
But
opposed
it's
to
the
love.
heart.
It's a flavor of love.
Yeah.
And yet, so the Brahma Viharas practices, they've been central to my life for decades.
Beautiful.
And it's so beautiful because within those practices, there's suttas and practices like the Karaniya Metta Sutta, which is the Buddha's song of love. Which that's it. I mean, it's kind of the entire path. It's just like within about 25 lines, the Buddha lays out the path. And so many people just go, oh, that's nice. I'm going to go back to who am I? Thanks. Whereas that, because what it's calling from us, it's so challenging. It's so challenging to meet all situations, all aspects of ourselves, all people with acceptance and well wishes. Like that is, it's profoundly challenging, isn't it?
It's challenging, and we have lots of practice these days. If we, look at the world stage and all the players that are involved politically and otherwise, people have a lot to say. And great practice. Whenever I tell my groups, I'm like, let's send some metta to Trump today. They go, what? I'm not saying that I voted for him or I didn't. But
I mean, but totally.
Yes.
And I think, well, that's wisdom, isn't it? Because actually, when wisdom dawns in us, not that we attain wisdom, when this wisdom, the awake wisdom that isn't us, dawns in our experience, it knows that, well, there is no separation, so there's no other. Ultimately, this is all together. And also, these actions of, let's say, Trump is a good example because he's quite extreme, he's
it's humanity. It's the display of like the worst parts of humanity.
Exactly. He's lost. If we know our true nature is open, loving, awake, acceptance and kindness and connection, unity, call it whatever you like. If we know that's the true nature of what it is to be alive, we can see that he's not available to him, so not available to him, and he is suffering, deeply, deeply suffering. There's no way, you cannot inflict that kind of behavior on the world without being in a lot of pain. So actually, he totally deserves our compassion, totally deserves it, which not a lot of people want to admit, but it is the truth. And it's the only antidote to what's going on.
And it doesn't negate compassion for those that are being harmed and compassion for ourselves. It includes that. And it includes a recognition that there are really, really dark, delusional parts of humanity of which we are a part. I mean, unity, it's all one. We're all the one thing. We're all the heart of bodhicitta. We're same taste. It's oneness. And in that, you also get the humanity thing. We're all part of that too. Not just the unconditioned. We're all a part of the conditioned. So, when you were talking about, seeing through our conditioning, unhooking from it, just seeing it for what it is, we're also not just, you know, coming to terms with, reconciling, healing, you know, transmuting our conditioning from this lifetime. Some would say it's through lifetimes, and also just the conditioning of humanity. You know, it's like, you know, good news and bad news. You've woken up. Now you're going to start, you know, clearing your conditioning. The bad news is you're clearing humanity's conditioning too, because you're here, you know?
Yeah. But what a gift. I mean,
So,
that is the gift, isn't it? Certainly I feel it in my life. And, you know, anyone who lives the Dharma life as you do, because like you said, it's what you do. It is your life, you know. Anyone who meets suffering with compassion, with an awake heart to the best of their ability, and supports people on the path, they recognize that that's the gift of awakening. It's not, and I think that's not spoken about quite a lot either. Is there's so much about me wanting to wake up. I want to wake up. You can be free from suffering. Yeah, you can really get the thing, because I got the thing and you can get the thing. Whereas actually from day one for me, it's always been clear this is for the benefit of all beings. This has
yeah,
always been the benefit of all beings. And I think if we don't have that as a context for our path and awakening in life, then it can become so solipsistic in this. That's a fancy word, isn't it? I didn't think I would say that. But, you know, like,
I
just,
like it.
I know. But, you know, like, really like, it's like a
Yeah.
self-centered spiritual awakening. And that is stubborn, you know. I've seen that in very
Yeah.
deeply realized people, as in they have a lot of clarity, and yet they're so involved in their own place in the world and how awake they are and how they can profit from it, you know, and those kind of things. And what's missing is that open-hearted movement of generosity, that, you know, that movement of love in the world. Because if it's for the benefit of all beings, like right now I can see, and from this place of seeing I can give, you know. At least
Yeah.
that's how it feels to me. And that is the most beautiful gift I've ever received in my life, because when I am in the presence of others that are deeply suffering, and I don't have to do anything, I can just be there and trust the wisdom of an awake heart to meet it. It always goes well for both of us. And
Yeah.
I can feel connection arise between us. And you can see that actually this is precious.
Yeah. And it's not about you, or it's not about me when
Yeah.
we're sitting with someone. There's something else moving through. And what's so beautiful about what you said is that, you know, one's awakening, whether they become a teacher or not, or a guide for
Mm,
others, is of benefit to others.
absolutely.
So, you know, because sometimes people are like, I want to go be a teacher right after. I mean, I have to say, like, this was not on my vision board. Like, I'm still like, what am I doing? Like, I was not like, I want to be a spiritual teacher. Like,
Similar,
not at
very
all.
similar. I kind of, in a lot of ways, I kind of hate some of it. And I don't hate the working with people, but you know, as I've spoken on some of my videos with regards to engaging in social media and playing the consumer capitalist game in order to try and share some presence with people and availability, I find it so challenging, you know, like it really is tough for me sometimes. That's not like poor
Yeah.
me. I don't mean that. I love my
No,
life,
I know.
but I'm not a natural at it, let's say, and yet there's a deep calling that won't go away. You know, I can't remember who it was. I think it was Delgin Kensei Rinpoche. I think it was him,
Hmm.
that we share the Dharma to share the Dharma, whether anybody's listening or not. And it's like, that's it. That's the calling. And it's like, it's not
Right.
about, yeah, it's like once we see and feel that truth, then our role is very clear. We share that truth. That's it. That's all. We share the truth. And actually, the
Yeah.
sharing of the truth is sharing our hearts, because it's the same thing, isn't
Yeah. And those with little dust in their eyes will see,
it?
you know, like,
Beautiful. Yeah. So
what are you going to do?
beautiful.
The Buddha afterwards was like, I'm not going to go do this. Who's going to believe me that there's not a solid
Yeah.
fixed sense of self, and that that's the source of our
Mm,
suffering? Nobody's going to want to hear this,
yeah.
you know?
And
Um,
yet,
and yet here we are.
and off he went with his stuff. And it's so beautiful, isn't it? Because then maybe it's something else that can be considered as well, is that and this is something that maybe about modern practitioners, let's call it modern practitioners, especially in the Western world,
Yeah.
we've kind of got it easy with regards to conditions. There's a lot of supportive conditions. That's not for
Yeah.
everybody, but there is a lot of privilege. I'm privileged to have
Oh, yeah.
this the shelter on my head. I've got a computer. I'm speaking to people electronically online. I know you've just
Yeah.
recently been to India, and you see the difference, the stark difference often
Oh, yeah.
between the Western world and the Eastern continents. And it's really interesting that when the Buddha talks about going forth on the path, as in like being a renunciate, that's a crucial part of the path as far as he's concerned, is actually renouncing worldly possessions, really. That doesn't necessarily mean giving it all away, but recognizing it will keep us stuck for a long time.
Yeah.
And I think a lot of people don't even consider it. They just think, you know what, I'm in, and I see it a lot in these really nice beachside Californian yoga wellness kind of places. And they're like, oh yeah, it's like God realm stuff, basically. Everything is so perfect. It's just love and
Yes.
light all of the time. It's like, that's all going to go, you do realize that all of that will go. Like it will not stay.
It,
And I think, yeah, there's not enough emphasis on preparing us for all situations. This awakening is so that we find
yes.
freedom in every condition, not
In
just the
every
favorable
condition.
ones.
And let me tell you, it's been challenging to be in Los Angeles and to be like, I'm an energy healer. So I'm an energy healing practitioner. So that's the bulk of my work. But of course, there's also the pointing people to their true nature and being an awakening guide. So both, are synergistically happening. So I've been in this world here. It's been frustrating and weird and odd. And I think in part why I'm like, well, I don't want to do this because, at least, and I'm not talking to us about people in LA or anything because I actually love it here and I live here. Uh, um, but a lot of people want what you are speaking to, which
Yeah,
is they want a light switch moment. They want to have psychic abilities open up. They want to have love and light all the time.
yeah,
They want to manifest. And,
yeah.
you know, the another cosmic joke I found is that, yes, you actually can have that. Like there is some kind of, there's a lot of love and light with a true seeing and a true opening. And there is some beautiful kind of manifestations that emerge because of that. And there is peace and there can be bliss and everything, but it's not through the doorway you think it is, you know? So it's like, it's just what you said. It's like, but there's no kind of like, how do I sit in the discomfort of just life being life, you know, and the truth, I think a lot of people have unresolved trauma and are carrying that. And it's really hard to sit with what is uncomfortable about life or about themselves if they are holding survival trauma. I mean, I know I had a lot of trauma, um, uh, and yeah, so it can be really challenging. So that is, I think the non-dual thing and also the new age thing that's getting sold. It's all
Yeah,
love and light and manifest whatever you want, and like none of this matters, and it's just you just wake up and it's all okay.
yeah,
Has some allure because so many of us are just kind of walking around just traumatized by life, especially
yeah,
if we're sensitive beings,
yeah,
which a lot of people on the spiritual path are
yeah,
sensitive,
totally. Yeah, I feel the same. Like, yeah, I remember it's not so long ago, when I realized, oh, that sensitivity that I was told from a very, very early age was
Oh, bad.
my biggest flaw or weakness. Not just a weakness, was the weakness. It was the
Oof.
flaw. It's like, oh, that's the secret. That's the power. I say the power. That's all of, yeah, my deepest. Hard to describe, but yeah, I recognize that. Yeah, that is a superpower that I've got in order to sensitively engage in the world, because
Yeah.
if I'm able to sense it, then wisdom's able to respond. It's through that, and
Yes.
it's related to practices like mindfulness and open-heartedness. But actually, yeah, it feels like the path as I continue. I say continue, it's just life now, but as it continues,
Yeah.
it's just a deepening sensitivity. It's just deepening, infinitely deep, actually. I'm
Yeah.
surprised on a daily basis. It's like, oh wow, it's fathomless,
It just is fathomless. Yeah.
and yet that's the very thing that's been beaten out of us often, either
Yes.
verbally or physically. And what a shame, like what a crying shame that is.
Yeah. Or like people on my YouTube channel will say, like, tell me, Sarah, with awakening, did your neurodivergent traits go away, or
Mm.
are you less sensitive now? Like, please tell me that this gets easier. And it's like, no, I'm actually more sensitive,
Yeah, yeah.
and I'm not less autistic or less ADHD. It's still kind of radiantly shining forth.
Yeah.
Um, uh, but yeah, that sensitivity that you were talking about, it is fathomless, because you begin to just really, like sensing the collective too, like
Mm,
you're not just sensing your own stuff again, you're sensing the collective
mm,
and what everybody's going through. And you're exquisitely attuned to anything that's happening in a situation you're in,
mm,
the
mm.
dynamics and everything, and the energies, and whereas before maybe so much was obscured. So there's a lot of seeing that happens, and I think our instrument adapts to insight and realization and becomes more capable to hold for what has been realized, and
Yeah,
that takes
yeah,
time. I
yeah.
mean, the realization
Oh,
can be
yeah.
in an instant
Mm,
and is timeless, but it's in time that this vessel, this nervous system, has to,
mm.
you know, adapt to what's been
Oh,
seen, to
yeah.
hold for it.
Yeah. And with that seeing, what we get to see is all of the conditioning, societal and otherwise, that keeps us reactive, keeps us fixed in a pattern of reactivity that would
Yeah,
always push us away from the moment. So, when that sensitivity was felt in the past, often we would we'd manage the best that we could. In fact,
that's right.
we'd manage beautifully, because this very thing, which now
Yeah,
looks like it's a bit maladaptive, but it kept us alive, it kept us safe,
yeah,
it really did support us. And yet we get to the stage where it's like, oh, it's now a hindrance to some degree. The reactivity is a
yeah,
hindrance to some degree, or the lack of capacity to sense,
yeah.
so then yeah, we get to see, oh, that thing that I used to do. So for me, it was a lot of addiction issues. I would
Uh-huh.
try to desensitize quite strongly
Uh,
to whatever was
yep,
available, and
sure.
yeah, sure, there were things like kind of porn and like sex addiction and those kind of things early in life, but really it was substances that I just had a real taste for them. And I think it was because it was at the beginning, it was so different to a life of misery, really, like being
Yeah,
traumatized, frozen being that was always in fear. Well, I could take this substance and it would open up some, yeah,
yeah,
warmth, some freedom. So it's like, oh, yeah,
yeah,
amazing. But then all of a sudden, well, not all, it wasn't all of a sudden. Uh,
yeah,
but yeah, any habit, it just digs in, and it doesn't allow, yeah, it doesn't allow us to get closer to that thing. So yeah, it's tricky, isn't it? Because then whatever it was that on the path that was preventing us from feeling the depth of fear,
yeah.
that's what needs to be faced and let go of. And that can be an ugly process. It's really challenging sometimes,
Yeah, because again, to the depth that we're able to realize our true
Mm.
nature, it speaks to also the depth to which we're able to hold
Yes.
for our own, stuff
Yeah.
as humans. So, and it can be easy to just want the other stuff, want the ultimate, you know. Yeah. Did you find that Buddhism helped you with the addiction issues,
Oh
uh,
yeah, a lot.
like from
Yeah,
the start, or?
yeah, yeah. Kind of. I mean, it did, and
Yeah,
then
it's a big
I
answer,
got
I'm
to,
sure.
well, I got to a certain stage because I really took to meditation when I first started meditating at a very young
Me
age. Like
too.
I'll say very young, like 17, 18. It felt so clearly like a different mode of being, other
Yeah.
than this sensitivity that was trapped in a world of people playing a game of ignorance that were and hurting each other, and me trying to play that game, and failing
Yeah. Yeah.
terribly, like being so like uncool and unable to fit in, like just I
Right.
didn't get the game at all. So then when I found meditation, luckily at the age of 17 or 18, almost within 2 sits, I was like, what is this? What Something is happening. I remember like within the first week, I had experiences that really, the jhana experiences, they're like just concentric
Yeah.
circles, like going boom. And so something energetically was shifting, real hyper, not hyper focus, that's the wrong word, access concentration, like deep meditative
Yeah.
concentration
Yeah.
on very quickly. I was like, oh, wow, okay, this is, so I kind of became really into it, and then started to explore the dharma and explore the teachings. But
Yeah.
the pain that was sitting underneath, well, I couldn't see. I didn't realize
Yeah.
how painful that was. So then as I got a bit deeper, the pain said, no, run away into hedonism. Basically, let go of the Dharma life, let go of the teachings, let's go
Uh,
partying, essentially. So I kind of, at the age of 23, I got to the stage where it was either like commit, really go into a Sangha,
mm,
or, well, do what I did, which was really hit it hard for a decade,
so
essentially.
you did. Yeah.
So I mean, it couldn't have gone any other way. It wasn't a choice. I didn't choose to
Yeah.
do it. It had to go that way. Like it felt like,
Yeah.
well, obviously I'm 23, I'm full of energy. There is this life of pleasure, and I've not had an awful lot of it. So I'm just going to chase it as hard as I can. So yeah, it felt like, and it's a blessing in a lot of ways, because I really, really
Sure.
suffered. I explored samsara about as deeply as you could explore it. As far as like, getting to the end of conditions that I think will satisfy me. It's like I'm gonna do
Yes.
everything to death. And then when I realize that there's nothing left to do and there is no satisfaction ultimately in these conditions, then actually that's a profoundly,
It's a gift.
insightful thing to realize. Yeah. Um, but there was a lot of suffering on the way, a lot of pain, and it's just the way it
Yeah.
went for me. And I guess this is why I kind of share what I do, because it doesn't have to be like that. Like,
Yeah.
people don't have to strive so hard on the path and punish themselves so much in life. People
Yeah.
can be a lot gentler in their approach, and still wake up, still find freedom.
And still find freedom. And I just, thank you for sharing that, because what you said about the jhanas, it's weird that I had the same experience. I had a lot of suffering, and within the first couple of sits, I was like in second jhana, and I
Yeah.
really went into the jhanas for the first few years, and
Oh wow. Yeah.
exploring them up to the eighth and back down, and just whoa, and remembering that I went into jhana as a child. Um,
Mm,
and that as I started doing these practices, I remembered, like, oh, like some Dzogchen practices, like, oh, I used to do this on the playground, or I used to do jhana practices
yeah.
like when I was 8. But that's the thing about the jhanas, is that it's an absorption, and you're
Totally.
taken into, either the, form jhanas or the formless jhanas, and it's very
Mm,
peaceful, it's very healing to the nervous system. But then you come out of it, and I would find that conditioning was louder.
yeah,
So then what do you do
absolutely.
with that,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah. Yeah. It's
So it was
wild,
a
isn't
nice
it?
break.
Yeah.
And it did, because I think the jhanas are facets of the awakened mind. They're not the
Mm,
awakened state, but they're facets of, there's no self,
yeah.
and there's, the bliss, the equanimity, of the fourth jhana or whatever. But yeah, it all comes down, everything you're saying is we have to face what is here. We have to face ourselves in all our beautiful, radiant, true nature, but also in our messy, effed up humanity.
There's a beautiful sutta, which is one of my
No.
favorites of the Buddhas, called a Barya Bharava Sutta. And it's basically the Buddha talking about fear and him dealing with fear, And what I love about the Buddha Dharma is that it's so pragmatic. It's always calling to practice, calling to practice, calling to practice, and leading by example. So someone asked him about how he deals with fear. So he said he would go out in the jungle on a full moon to sacred sites, which is basically just an opening in the jungle in India, surrounded by wild cats and animals that will kill you, basically.
Yeah.
And he would sit there all night in a full moon, in full display, with nothing but his like a bowl and a stick in a robe. And if fear arose, no matter what he was doing, either sitting, standing, walking, lying down, he would continue to do that practice. So if he was walking and fear arose, and these were not just fear, this was like nervous system, full on.
Natural response. Yeah.
That's the sound of a leopard. You're going to die. So like the deep fears, he would continue to walk, and he would invite absorption into the moment. And he would basically, like you said, he would track from first jhana, second, third, fourth, up to the eighth jhana, and then through letting go and seeing through the nature of fear, he would be released. He would be at ease again and find himself in presence. But what I love about that is because it kind of tracks with my experiences, that I remember when all of that kind of meditative insight, absorption stuff, it just kind of stopped working. It just got to a stage where it's just like, I've done that now. Like it just doesn't, because the way it seems is that it's always eighth jhana and above, like all of the time. It's always
right.
Neither abiding,
neither perception nor non-perception.
Yeah, exactly. And I remember having the experience of really sitting in the form and the formlessness one, the no thing, abiding in the no thingness. And just this very, on retreat, in this very clear meditative experience of like what I was doing to make things, as in like, there's just process. It's all process. It's just, look, it's obviously just unfolding. And here's me trying to cobble together a me so I can cobble together a thing. Of course, that's going to hurt. And I could see the grasping and the manipulation of the forming. And then it all just went done. So, and then the next day, I looked out, I was just sitting outside, I looked out into the world, and it all just fell apart. So you could say the form and formless fetters, like 6 and 7, I think it is. But basically the way the world looked, it completely fell apart. It all just went, there we go. It's all gone. I was like, oh. So, and what was really interesting, because I could remember it from being a child, like actually the lack of fixation or the lack of fixedness in any experience. But when I was a child, there was a lot of fear. So actually, when I was that vulnerable last, that open last, was when I was hurt the most. So that was like a wallop. It was like a 1-2 of like deep shift, clear seeing, unfurling of what I took the world to be, and then total dread. So then I was like trying to put it all back together again.
Then you try to put it all back together, but it's something has been seen through. It does not work. But I mean, that's the ultimate, good use of the jhana is then, is the insight that can come from it. So, it was used well, but I went through that kind of like wanting to put the world back together again. Can I just go back to like the way things were
when there were
at a certain point? Like or the way I am or whatever, or and I think that's very natural on the path, that
Yes.
people kind of do that scramble because you're in a liminal space. You're not embodying what's been realized yet. And so you have to kind of, that's why you need like a Sangha or somebody to just kind of hold your hand and go, don't worry, you're not crazy.
Yeah.
You're going to be okay. Like, I'm in this with you. Nope. Yeah. Nope. You're not losing it. Nope. It's not going to be like this forever. Yep. So.
What a gift it is that we get to do that for people, like I definitely feel that in the one-to-ones and the group sessions that I hold is just like, I can see the sense of ease when people realize, oh, I'm not alone. This is okay, and it's a totally human thing. Like it feels like I'm losing my humanity, and it's like, oh
yes.
no, it's richly human if we know how to open to it, and I think when there's a lot of messages of no self and a lot of messages of like nothing to do, nowhere to go, no one doing anything, nothing's ever happened, all of that radical non-dual messaging that conditions a lot of fear in people. So being able to say, oh no, yes, it feels like this, but we can open to the humanity of what's here, and it seems to settle people reasonably quickly.
Yeah, I mean, because we're creatures, we're animals, this vessel we are wired for belonging.
Yeah,
we're wired to connect. That's just not going to go away.
No.
And people are like, well, if you've had a realization, why do you need the Sangha or people around you to like make you feel better? And it's like, we're just, you know what? It's the paradox. We've realized something beyond this, and yet we need this reflected back to us, beings that are here and saying, yeah, you're not alone. Let's sit in our humanity and our true nature, like simultaneously. Our true nature is what's holding it all anyway, or it's arising out of it. But yeah, it's people do seem very kind of surprised too, like, oh, I just needed to be seen and witnessed in this. I just needed to know that this is okay.
Yeah.
Because there's an intelligence to awakening. I think we're wired for it.
Yeah.
So if there can be a relaxation of the system even further, then it just shines through. So if it's happening through sitting in a group with a bunch of other people where you don't feel as, fucked up anymore, then great,
Oh, this is so good, Sarah. I'm deeply enjoying this conversation. Yeah,
me too. So good to talk to you.
And especially because, as you've probably noticed, I'm although a lot of my practice, none of my practice really is scholastic or academic anymore. There's been a lot, like I've totally been immersed in it, and actually, I find it on a nerdy level. I really love like dharma nerd exploration, kind of like it's.
I know, right?
It's a fun thing to do, and I guess that one of the reasons that I like it so much is maybe a bit of
Dharma nerd.
Yeah, but because it's so rich, like the teachings are so rich, there's so much to explore, and they're so robust. That's what I like about it, and this is what is often missing when you present as an example. And this isn't anybody's fault, but when you present a mode of practice, like we'll do a 10 fetters practice and that will get you to the end. So we'll miss the entire Dharma Vinaya, but we'll just focus on one of the suttas. So then what happens is people, quite rightly, they do all the practice and it's good practice, but then they're lost, because actually that's where the rest of the Dharma and the Sangha supporting the Dharma would have stepped in. It's like, oh, look, there are all these other facets to support us on the path. And I think taking these slithers, it seems like it's a really wise and skillful thing to do, but I think it gives people short shrift. I think people are left wanting, actually. They're left wanting, and because they're like, well, I've done all the feta practices as an example, and yet I still feel lost. It's like, well, yeah, I mean, because the path was never just the feta practices. It was a deeply like embodied, explored path of action, meditation, and realization.
Yeah, because I see a lot of teachings out there that are like, oh, you can wake up if you do A, B, or C. And yeah, you
Mm,
might actually, you might have a very profound awakening. But
yeah.
as we've been talking, like, and then what? You know,
Mm,
it doesn't end there. This
yeah.
is now now it begins,
Yeah.
you know, and so there's that context, and that, you know, sometimes people don't, yeah, they just don't know how to hold it, or what to do next. And even though, like, I'm being a dharma nerd with you, like, I would say I really practiced really strongly Buddhism for about 5 years, and then sort of drifted off into other, I got
Mm,
into kind of new age stuff and energy stuff, and sort of explored, oh, like Vedanta, what's that? And
yeah.
um, so I love that you've been practicing for like decades of
Mm,
just, you know, but I will say that Buddhism, it like that was my foundation. It
mm,
is it. I mean, when I first heard the teachings, I was like, oh yeah, I get this. Like, I'm home.
mm,
Like, this is
mm,
familiar. This makes sense. It was just a homecoming, you know, for me. And so I've really enjoyed this, because I think you mentioned some suttas that I hadn't heard of or read, or yeah, and then the ones that we are familiar with, it's vibing with it,
mm,
is really nice, because it's such a full canon of teachings, you know.
mm.
Um, and there
Some of
are
the,
preparatory practices, and there
oh,
are, you
there.
know, fruition practices, and you know, and honestly, I don't know if people want to do all that, and I
Mm,
don't, and I, you know, I see the way the world is, and, you know, maybe because it is happening, people are waking up and having profound realizations without doing all that stuff. And well, here we are. So, you know, skillful means, how are we going to work with it? Um,
skillful means, exactly. Yeah,
you
yeah,
know,
absolutely. And yeah, it's definitely not for me to say that people need to follow any kind of religious ideal or any
yeah,
kind of
yeah,
like particular mode of practice. But certainly, I think that what I'm advocating for is to explore more deeply the heritage of what we're looking into, because
that's it.
this is not new. This has been explored for
That's
thousands
right.
of years. There's a lot of great guidance over the last 3,000 years that we can look into. We don't have to just look to the most new modern hot teacher on, you know, on the market. We can explore a bit more deeply and go, oh, so the thing, because often what I found, and I'm probably the same for you, is that
Yeah,
people will come to me in one-to-ones and say, oh, I'm exploring this thing. It's like, yeah, that's been spoken about. Okay. Like that's already
yeah,
been covered. And then I'd say
yeah,
99% of the time it's like, yep, that's pretty common. And it was talked about 2,500 years ago.
yeah,
And it's
yeah,
like,
yeah,
but yeah. And so I think it's just like you said, it's a skillful thing to do to explore, because it supports us, doesn't it? It gives us not just this narrow range of like modern material. It gives us like, yeah, a bit of depth, a bit of support. Um,
yeah,
I'm kind
yeah.
of keen, before we go, to explore what it means to you to be a spiritual trail guide, because
Mm.
as a term, it's really resonates with me, and it's resonated with me in a specific way, which I might share. But I'm wondering what it kind of how it resonates with you and why that arose.
Yeah. Oh my gosh. Well, I've never appreciated or wanted the term spiritual teacher. That just sounds so like, you
Or
know, like
guru.
what is, yeah, like,
Yeah.
you know, I'm just like fumbling around with all of you guys in the trenches here. But awakening trail guide, I mean, I've sort of kind of become what I needed years ago. um you know, there were books that I wished had been written, there were videos I wish were out there. There was some, you know, I just wanted somebody to kind of like sit with me, and just like you said, like, nope, that's normal, that's what happens. So
Yeah.
that's, I just see myself as a trail guide,
Mm,
and an intuitive energy healer. So, you know, tuning in intuitively and seeing what's going on and working with energy to help unhook stuff. And, um, but just being with you on this path. I mean, you know, there's the term spiritual mentor or spiritual guide, or, and it just
mm,
awakening trail
mm,
guide. Just, I don't know. It just felt like, yeah, that's what I am, you know, because I make no
mm,
claims to be finished. And yet there's nothing anybody's ever brought to me that I've been like, oh, I'm not familiar with that. I've never heard that. I've never experienced that, which probably
Beautiful.
you've experienced too. It's like, okay,
You're
yeah, I know
putting
this
such a big
terrain.
smile on my face, Sarah. Like I'm just
Yeah.
like I can't. I'm just like grinning from ear to ear listening to this because, I mean, exactly, yeah. It resonated with me in the same way, and I feel it in my own life because, let's say, the pathless path, is a
Yeah.
path, as it's a clear. Let's say it's
Yeah.
a clearing. I mean, the Buddha talked about it as being a path that was covered over for
Yeah.
centuries. And
Exactly.
he found a way. It was always there. He found the way. So it feels like for me is like, okay, well, I don't have to. I'm not back there at the beginning of the journey. I'm not there, but I
Yeah.
can go back there and I can walk it with you. And that
Yeah.
seems to be what happens is that, like, actually, wherever you are on the path, I know, like, I've got a pretty good idea of where that is, and I can
Yeah.
come and walk alongside you. I'm not going to. And I think what you get a lot of people is people maybe in a tall building over there somewhere, like off the
Yeah.
path, going, "Come this way, come this
Yeah.
way."
Yeah. Come on.
Yeah, as opposed to, I'm right here, let's go together. And I think
Yes.
when that happens, it's so profound. I think people appreciate it so much. And I think it's just way more effective. I think it's just a more
I do,
effective
I
thing
do
to do.
too. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I do too. To walk with somebody and go like, yeah, I've been here before, but I remember this terrain. It's lovely. Oh, look at these trees and look at this. Oh
Yeah.
yeah, watch out. There's a trap right there, But well, and what you're saying about like seeing where people are out on the path, because there can be that confusion at the beginning of the path when there's like seeing through the self or seeing no self
Mm,
is one thing, as opposed to after non-duality has really blossomed and it's dropped into the
mm,
heart,
mhm,
the no self that gets revealed beyond non-duality is
mm,
it's a different terrain of
mm,
no self, right?
mm.
Which, I mean, we could have a whole conversation about that. So
Because-
it's like, well, which part of the like no self territory are you swimming around in?
Totally.
So yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, yeah.
Beautiful.
So
So
it's important. And
beautiful.
some people say there's no stages on the path, but and ultimately that, there isn't, ultimately we don't exist too, but we are
Mm,
existing in time simultaneously.
mm.
And so there does seem to be um stages to it, I found,
It seems that way, doesn't it? There seems to be
Yeah.
um there's some clear delusions or clear delusional beliefs that keep us bound, that need to be unhooked and let go of. I guess the trick is that a lot of people think the way to see through the delusions is just look at the delusion, whereas actually no, the way to let go of the delusions is look at our actions, look at our conditioning, look at the way that we react. And as we get closer to that, give that more acceptance, we
Yeah.
let go of that reactivity, then the insight becomes really, really clear. And I think this is
Yeah.
kind of, well, and that's always been the path that the Buddha talked about. And as far as I know,
Yeah.
it's a path in Advaita Vedanta as well. But I
Yeah.
think
Yeah.
we put the cart before the horse in a lot of modern non-dual. It's like total infinite wisdom right now. It's
Yeah.
like,
Yeah.
okay, you can't just, if my body mind is totally hooked onto getting safety through things, I can't just go, well, there are no things. Okay, I've convinced myself there are no
Yeah.
things. And I can't just look at the things and go, that's not a thing. And then suddenly insight will dawn and I will be free. We have to feel how we are attached. We have to feel it. It has to be
Yeah.
experienced. It's like, oh, when that thing goes, it hurts and I chase it. I got to feel that. And then
Yeah.
the letting go happens, and it's, yeah. So yeah, I kind of resonate exactly with what you're saying, but, well, no, but just yes, just a big yes, essentially. And I wanted to, I mean, we can talk maybe another time. What I
Yeah.
really well is that with all of this, and you talked about jokes a few times, because I know you're a comedian part time, full time, some of the time.
Well, I had kind of two careers for a while as a stand-up comedian and an awakening trail guide, and that was getting to be like a lot. I've been an
Yeah.
actress for many, many years, and um, so I haven't been doing much stand-up for the past few years,
Okay.
and because this is my
Yeah.
full-time gig, so to
Yeah.
speak.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
I never say never. I'm probably going to get on stage again and do some crazy stuff. But yeah,
I guess what I
yeah,
really like about that is that, this invitation to explore joy and lightness and laughter
yeah,
from a place of awakening, as opposed to being this often talked about totally sterile, still perfect being of
yeah,
unreactivity. Like
yeah.
what I sense in you is just this lightness and play, and
Yeah,
that,
playfulness is so
yeah,
important. It's so it's so key. And I mean, so much of being a good like professional stand-up comedian is being relatable as a human.
mm,
And that's where we laugh the most at, is just
mm,
our shared humanity. I mean, that's really all stand-up comedians are doing. Like, isn't this
yeah,
absurd? Like,
yeah,
and so um yeah, it works because whoever's up there is in the trenches with you. So I don't know
yeah,
that I'll ever drop that, like, hey, I'm in the trenches with you, because
mm,
that was, just my experience being a stand-up comedian was like, you're relatable to people. Like, it comes
mm,
naturally. It feels weird to not be relatable and be like, no, I know all this stuff and you don't know anything. If a stand-up comedian does that, I mean, Anthony Jeselnik kind of takes on that role a bit, like, but
okay,
it's a
yeah,
persona. But the audience isn't necessarily going to laugh, and isn't going to feel that shared
mm,
humanity. So yeah, the kind of like we're in this together seems to be what feels natural to me, whether it's
yeah,
comedy or just being an awakening trail guide. So
yeah,
yeah,
beautiful. Yeah, and
yeah,
like you said, you never know. I guess the beauty of opening to mystery and living as this present moment is that we totally don't know. We totally don't know moment to moment how it's going to
yeah.
arise. And I've been surprised. I'm sure you have been surprised by the things I end up doing. Totally,
Me
it's like,
too.
oh, this is where my life's going now. Isn't that fascinating? Like I could never have
Yeah,
predicted this would arise.
yeah,
So yeah,
completely. I'm like, oh, well, okay, I guess we're doing this now.
yeah,
Like,
yeah,
yeah,
absolutely.
okay. But yeah, there, years ago, so much resistance. No, my life needs to go like this,
Mm,
and it's
mm,
like it the and it's just you learn this over and over again. I mean, there's no end to learning this too, and just being like, oh
mm.
yeah, that again.
Yeah,
That when
yeah,
you
yeah.
really let go, then something can unfold and something can emerge and something can flow forth that's like more true, more deep, more skillful. So it's all in the letting go and the letting in,
Mm,
and then not pushing against what then starts emerging and arising,
yeah, yeah.
you know?
I
Yeah.
do. Well, that's a beautiful
Yeah.
message to kind of finish on, isn't it? And to share with the world, because
Yeah. Beautiful.
this has been a joy, a real joy. Thank you so
Complete
much.
joy. I'm so glad we got to talk and that
Mm,
set this up. Thank you.
yeah, and I'm sure we will chat again because I'm really keen.
Yeah.
In a bit of a segue, I'm really keen to explore neurodivergency, ADHD, ASD, and
Yeah.
awakening. Because I work with quite a lot of neurodivergent patients. I work in mental health care, and I'd
Yeah.
say 90% of the patients I work with have like multiple diagnoses, and one of them is like an ND, neurodivergent diagnosis.
Yeah.
And I think it's just super insightful and important aspect of understanding what we are, what people are about, because
Yeah.
when we do that, what I found is just relationships get so much easier. If I
Yeah.
know that you are, like you said, highly sensitive and you've got maybe an ASD, like a diagnosis, then, and I know what that is, and I also know how to compensate and to be available for you, then it just goes better, it just goes loads better. And yeah,
Yeah.
I'm still at the beginning of my journey of really, really getting into the weeds and learning deeply with it. So I'd love to explore more with you in the future.
Yeah, let's do it. Let's do it.
Nice.
we all have different operating systems, you
Absolutely.
know? Yeah,
Yeah. Well, look after
yeah.
yourself. Thank you so much.
You too. Thank you so much for having this conversation. Let's
Yeah.
keep in touch for sure.
Yes.
Okay.
We'll speak soon.
Thanks for watching. If you enjoyed today's video, please be sure to like and subscribe and hit the bell to be notified about brand new videos when they come out. And as always, let me know in the comments, how are you doing? I always want to hear from you. Till next time.